Hello friends, and welcome to this forum which discusses the power of meditation and its correlation to neuroscience. On our panel this evening, we have the Most Venerable Bhante Bimalaramsi Mahathera, the Chief Prelate of the Dhamma Sukha Meditation Center in Annapolis, Missouri, USA. We are also honored to have Professor Ranil De Silva, the Director of the World Class Universities Grant Project of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, and Mrs. Soma De Silva, former Regional Advisor for UNICEF South Asia. Bhante, we know that you teach tranquil wisdom insight meditation, better known by its acronym TWIM. What is TWIM, and would you explain its correlation to mindfulness?
Let's first work with the definition of mindfulness,
Yes.
because that's a lot of different definitions are coming out. The definition of mindfulness by the Buddha is remembering to observe how mind's attention moves from one thing to another. Now, when you have that definition, it actually goes quite deep into how mind works. Basically speaking, you have a feeling arises. Now, this is not talking about emotional feeling, this is just talking about feeling. It's either a painful feeling or pleasant feeling, or neither pleasant nor painful. Right after that, craving arises. Now, there's a lot of question when I ask people about what is craving, because they know the word, they know they're supposed to know what it means, but they don't know how does it arise. What do you do with it when it does arise? How do you let it go? And craving is basically the I like it or I don't like it mind. If it's a pleasant feeling that arises, I like it. If it's a painful feeling arises, I don't like it. This is the very beginning in the false belief in a personal self. Right after that arises, then you have clinging. And clinging is all of your stories, all of your opinions, all of your ideas and concepts about what you think about that feeling, whether you like it or dislike it. And right after that arises, then you have your habitual emotional tendency. And your habitual emotional tendency is where your fear, your anxiety, your depression, your sadness, that's where that starts to grab hold of you. Now, we're made up of 5 different things. We have a physical body, we have feeling, pleasant, painful, neither painful nor pleasant. We have perception. Perception is a part of the mind that names the feeling. If this is a nice feeling or it's a painful feeling. You have thoughts, you have consciousness. What happens is most people, when they have a painful feeling arise, their mind gets tight and says, I don't like that. And then they get caught in trying to think the feeling away. Now, feelings are one thing and thoughts are something else. But we get caught up in trying to control the feelings that arise with our thoughts. But the more you think about a feeling, the bigger and more intense that feeling becomes. Let's say depression, that seems to be one of the natural things that are happening these days. How does it arise? Well, a painful feeling arises. Right after that, I don't like it. Right after that, all of your stories and opinions and ideas, the mental proliferation starts to take over. and you make up stories that aren't necessarily true with how mind works. Right after that, you get caught up in your emotional tendency to close down because this is a painful feeling. I don't know how to handle it. And I get more and more emotional about it because I'm identifying with that individual feeling. This is me, this is mine, this is who I am. And that's a false belief, according to Buddhism. Everything in Buddhism is part of an impersonal process. In other words, you're seeing that this thought, I didn't ask this thought or this feeling to arise. It arose by itself because conditions were right for it to arise. What you do with what arises in the present moment dictates what happens in the future. If you start trying to control your feelings and your thoughts, and you try to change the feeling, and you try to make the feeling be something other than it is, that is the cause of suffering. And you're thinking a lot about that feeling, and you're trying to control the feeling. But the truth is, when a feeling arises, it's there. That's the truth. So you have to learn how to allow the feeling to be there without thinking about it. Let go of the thoughts, relax the tightness in your mind caused by those thoughts. Then you see a tight mental fist wrapped around that feeling. I don't like it, I don't want it there, it's painful. And every time you try to fight with that, it gets more intense, it gets worse. So that doesn't work. What we have to learn to do is open up and relax and allow the feeling to be there without trying to change it, without trying to make it be different. And when you do that, you don't keep your attention on the feeling. You let the feeling be there by itself. Now you move your attention away from that, and you relax tightness in your head. That's how you recognize craving. So when you let go of the tightness in your head, all of a sudden your mind is clear. Your mind is very bright. Your mind is very alert. And it is pure. Why is it pure? Because you don't have craving in your mind at that time. Now that's the first part of right effort. The next part of right effort is to bring up something that's wholesome. And what I generally do when I'm teaching meditation is I teach people to smile.
How does that help, Bhante?
Huh?
How does that help?
Well, when you teach people to smile, their mind is light. Their mind is much more alert. And you have a tendency to have joy arise. And this is a very good thing. The more you smile, the better your mindfulness becomes. There are some times I teach people not to sit in meditation for a long period of time, a week or 2 weeks. All I want you to do every day is smile all day. Even when you don't feel like smiling, smile. And if you have some kind of emotional upset where you get angry or you get sad, I teach people to laugh. And that sounds really odd, because meditation is supposed to be serious.
Precisely.
But what I tell people when I first start teaching them is, I want you to have fun, I want you to smile, and I want you to laugh. And I'm not talking about laughing out loud necessarily, but laughing at how crazy your mind can be when it comes up with these kind of odd things. So when you laugh, you go from, let's say, I'm mad and I don't like it, to, after laughing, it's only this anger. Now I have a choice. Do I want to hold on to this anger or let it go? Nobody's going to hold on to it, so they're going to let it go. This kind of mental development is an all-the-time practice. Now, I am a meditation teacher, but I teach that life is meditation. It's what are you doing when your mind gets disturbed? How do you handle that? What are you supposed to do with that? So I teach people this is how these things arise. It's pleasant feeling or painful feeling, same coin, different side. I like it or I don't like it. Relax into that. When you relax into that, then you don't have thoughts arising. Your mind is clear, your mind is bright, your mind is very alert and pure. Then you smile and you come back to your object of meditation. Your object of meditation can be smiling. So when I teach people about the smiling, their mindfulness, they didn't even know what mindfulness was until they started smiling. It's observing how mind's attention moves. It's not whether it moves in a positive way or a negative way, just this is how it moves. And when you see your mind starting to get heavy, then you can relax and smile, and it brings your mind so that it's lighter.
Professor, having listened to that, what is the neuroscience background of meditation, and have there been any previous research studies done in this particular area?
Basically, if you look at in the context in USA, I mean, a lot of studies are going on, and here we talk of 2,500 year history of Buddhism, but in USA, there are special universities are there to do only meditational studies. And if you look at, say, one of the top journal like Wall Street Journal, the Times, I mean the front page or the cover page, it's about some issues have come through the importance of meditation. So therefore, I think, I mean, and they have gone much far ahead than what we are, because they have the technology, but even though we do not have that amount of technology, but I think we have the resources, the human resources, the meditating personalities, the meditating monks, lay. So there's a huge potential we have, and that's why we, as from the World Class University project, we ventured into this area, because I mean the university as a whole can get involved, especially the Pali and Sanskrita department, and then the medical faculty, the science faculty, the management faculty, we all can get together. And actually Dr. Karunaratna, who was the former vice chancellor, I mean he absolutely helped us. It was actually, still we are running the support that he has given. So actually it's moving in, we just started this, and it's moving, I think, in the correct direction, and we are trying to bring a lot of people involved into this group, so that we could get a lot of inputs and make university center of excellence in Buddhist meditation. And that's what my former vice chancellor and I had the discussion, and where he actually in fact wanted Venerable Khema from USA to be brought from USA and to be stationed in our university, Pali and Sanskrit department. So therefore, you could see the way that the former Vice Chancellor has thought about, and it's really paying dividends now.
So, Professor, how does neuroscience play a role in
basically, if
meditation?
you look at the neuroscience and from the slides you could see, I mean, we have whole heap of neurons. It's about 1 billion, and if you look at the wiring, it's about millions of kilometers of wiring is there. And if you look at the connection, it's 1 trillion connection in the brain. So, I mean, it's a mystery. Nobody knows how it works.
It hasn't been unraveled?
Never. I don't think it can be ever been done. It's so mysterious organ. So, I mean, in this context, what we could see is how meditation changes these connectivities, this wiring, these neurons, and how does the brain changes, and that
Change as in change for the better or for the worse, or for both?
for betterment, because most of the studies that has come through, the very sophisticated studies that mainly has come from US, they have shown it's absolutely for the betterment.
What kind of betterment?
One thing is the social. If you look at this slide here, I mean, here in this slide you could see, I mean, these are some of the studies. I mean, here is a person who basically is a criminal, and if you look at his the images, the you could see the areas in which they are the red areas are the ones that is more active. You could see that it's in certain area of the brain, but
Yes.
Underneath you have a meditating Buddhist monk, and this monk, if you look at the same brain areas, it's a different area in which the brain is functioning. So, you could see if you have bad ideas, criminal ideas, killing ideas, this is an area of the brain that is getting more hyperactive or more active. Whereas, in a Buddhist monk, where as Venerable Bhante very quite explained, it's very calm. And here Americans have shown is actually exactly what Buddha said, and what exactly stated by Venerable Bhante, it's really happening inside the brain, and that's definitely going towards the social well-being. You could see, I mean, you can prove it, it's really happening inside the brain.
Mrs. De Silva, meditation, as you know, is increasingly being used in modern psychotherapy to treat a wide range of psychological disorders. Now, how did this practice come about, and what is its current status as of 2015?
Right. I must first say that this is a very, very significant giant step forward in the research on psychology as well as psychiatry. But not only, it has also moved into education, into health, into education, into law, to sports, management. As professors mentioned, that this is very widely spread across universities in the states, taught as a subject. There are special centers. Now, Kumar, you asked how did it all come about? I would say this all came about with a person by the name Kabat Singh, who is actually a professor of medicine emeritus in the University of Massachusetts, where he also founded the stress management clinic and a number of other such institutions. So, I think he read Buddhist studies, Buddhist books, early Buddhist books, studied Buddhism, and he did something wonderful to my way of thinking, which is he got this concept of mindfulness. Right, which is mindfulness is actually, we know, is at the core of Buddhism. It's one of the path factors of the Eightfold Path Factor, and one of the most important, if I may say so. And now I suppose, I imagine this, I suppose he thought, well, this opens the way for helping people with mental disorders. But then he had a big challenge. How would you introduce a concept from a so-called religion into scientific community and align it in a way that's culturally acceptable to a Western society? Yeah? So, yes.
Alignment would be the key word there.
Alignment
How do you align
is a key
this?
word.
Yes.
Otherwise, they will say, okay, so this is religion, and of course, and this is Buddhism, and
Yes.
so on and so forth. So I think he was very patient, he was very clever and smart by giving it a definition that somehow aligned culturally and also let itself be amenable to scientific inquiry, because both are important. So what he said was, if I recall this right, mindfulness is the awareness that emerges when paying attention, that's another important word, in a particular way. So awareness, attention, like with Akka Vichara, in a particular way. And what is the way? On purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So there's a lot to think about, you know. I think that's a very major contribution. He took the, I'm sure Bhante might explain later, that this captures in a sense the essence of mindfulness as described in the Sutta Pitaka, as described in Dhammasangani, for example, which Bhante alluded to when he said about recalling and so on. But then, now this is not enough. It's what we call a conceptual definition. Now, if you want to do research with this, if you want to make applications with this, then you have to measure it, because measurement is at the heart of scientific methods
Yes,
of inquiry.
Of course, yes.
So now this happened about 40-50 years ago, and now the definition was debated upon. It was improved. Concepts were expansions were made, and an operational definition was also done. But while all these things were happening, the concept of mindfulness caught on, because by developing mindfulness, clearly people are going to feel better. So he first applied this for stress management, for stress reduction. So he had like a 8-week program, a group therapy as he called it, for a group of 8-10 people. And what happened, it was 8 weeks, like one session per week. One session per week, and there was what is called psychoeducation, basically giving information, correct information about the brain, about the mind, how you feel and how you can feel better, that kind of thing, and meditation, but a mix of meditation methods.
And what was the outcome of this?
Outcome of it was that people felt less stressed, relieved. It was also experimentally proved, the stress levels at the beginning, stress levels at the end, and as the professor said, when that meditation is done, the activities of certain parts of the brain changes, calms, kind of rays that emit are different, that kind of thing. So this has now developed. Mindfulness-based psychotherapy is one of the most researched and in fact most highly funded areas. More than 250 interventions, psychological interventions have been developed for a range of psychological or psychiatric disorders, going from very common ones like depression. For example, when people have depression and they go into remission, there is always a tendency for the depression to relapse. And he showed that with that therapy that he developed, after him, other people took on and made sort of developed interventions for other conditions, depression to delay the relapse, for substance abuse, again to delay the relapse. Then there's anxiety.
And it was successful.
And it was successful. But there is a question mark there. We don't know, let's say it was successful because symptoms reduced. Symptoms reduced. Then there have been experiments with, I'm not particularly sure whether there were experiments for this group therapy, I'm not sure, but symptom relief was definitely established by experiments which measure the level of symptoms before and after. And for very major ones, even there are things called borderline personality disorder. They are with people with that condition tend to self-harm. They are the ones who jump off, heights to kill themselves, cut themselves with knives and so on. Even for those, adaptations of this technique have been used.
Bhante, back to tranquil wisdom inside meditation. What are the stages of mind a normal person can reach by doing TWIM? And how does one know that this person has reached this particular stage? How would one know?
Oh boy. When I give a retreat, one of the things that I tell people about is the Buddha came up with a word that is called samadhi. And that word has been redefined over the years to mean absorption concentration or one-pointed concentration. But the actual word samadhi was made up by the Buddha so that he could explain that there is a different kind of awareness than one-pointed concentration. With one-pointed concentration, your mind zooms in just on one thing.
Yes.
To the exclusion of everything else. You get to a place that you don't hear anything, or if I come up and I hit you with a stick, you won't feel it. Now this is what they call jhana practice, but actually this is more of a Hindu practice than a Buddhist practice.
Why do you say that, Bhante?
Because what the Buddha taught was to do this with your awareness, not this. And the difference is the letting go of craving, that relaxed step. Now, your brain has two lobes in it, and you have what's called a meninges wrapped around it. Every time you have a thought, every time you have a feeling, every time there is a sensation, the brain expands a little bit and causes tightness to arise in your head. And when you learn to recognize that and relax it, all kinds of different things occur. Your mind becomes more peaceful, your mind becomes more alert, your mind becomes more uplifted because you don't have craving in your mind. This is one of the main differences between what the Buddha taught as compared to other kinds of practice. It's been kind of mixed up a lot into Buddhism. Buddhism, to me, has nothing to do with religion. This has to do simply with this is how mind works. And an interesting thing when I'm giving a retreat to Asians that they don't particularly like is that I tell them that everybody's mind works in exactly the same way.
Oh.
It works exactly in the same way. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Westerner or you're from Asia, it doesn't matter. Everybody that's a human being, their mind works in exactly the same way. It's just being able to recognize that, recognize when craving arises. So when the Buddha was teaching tranquil wisdom, insight, meditation, he was adding one extra step into the meditation that changes the entire meditation. That one extra step is learning to recognize when that craving arises and to relax into it. I teach a thing that I call the 6 R's, which is just another way of practicing right effort from the Eightfold Path. It's just another way of describing it. You recognize when your mind gets distracted. You release the distraction by not keeping your attention on it. You relax the tightness caused by that distraction. Then you bring up something wholesome. You smile. And you return to your object of meditation with a smiling mind, a light mind. One of the biggest problems that I have in teaching is people have been doing other kinds of meditation and they start putting in too much effort, too much push to attain something. And actually what I have to keep teaching them and reminding them is relax. Don't try so hard. This is a natural process. It's not a forced kind of concentration.
But shouldn't there be some effort on their part?
The effort comes in recognizing, releasing the distraction, relaxing, smiling, and coming back to your object of meditation. And when you do that, you stay on your object of meditation for longer periods of time.
So how long does it take a person to reach any of those stages?
1 day, 2 days.
As fast as that?
Yeah. This is a lot
I
different.
thought it takes a long, long time.
That's what most people think. But when you add this relaxed step, it changes the entire meditation. In a 10-day period, I can teach you how to experience all of the Rupa jhanas and Arupa jhanas in 10 days.
It also depends on how receptive I am.
Well, it depends on how well you follow directions. That's what it really depends on. Because when I give a retreat, I'm reading you straight from what the Buddha says. And when you start understanding that and you start seeing, well, this really does work, then you start getting enthusiastic and you start following more closely. Now, even in a 10-day period, there can be some people that can attain Nibbana. And that is unheard of, because a lot of people will tell you, well, there's no sense in doing any meditation or mental development right now, because you're not going to get anything out of it anyway. But see, I've practiced meditation for 40 years. The first 20 years I did straight vipassana, and I found out that it doesn't lead to what the Buddha said. So I started studying and going back to the original teaching of the Buddha, and I started seeing how some things were left out and some things were changed. So when I'm teaching, your progress is going to be fast. That's just, I'm used to that. And there's a lot of people that say, oh, I've got to do a 3-month retreat. I wouldn't know what to do with you for 3 months.
It's a long time.
Because you already have the understanding. You'll get the understanding of the Buddha and what he's talking about in as little as 2 weeks. And after that, you can go off on your own and you can practice on your own. And you will be successful. But the thing is, being able to recognize when hindrances arise in your daily life and what to do with those hindrances. And that's when you start practicing the 6 R's. You recognize when there's a distraction away from what you're doing. Your mind gets restless. You start thinking about this. You start thinking about that. And you release that. Don't keep your attention on that distraction. And you relax. And you re-smile. And you return to your object of meditation. In your daily life, what were you doing? I had a lot of students that they would get close to finals time and they would start to get very worried. And what I basically taught them was how to recognize that, because all of a sudden you're thinking about this and you're worried about that. while you're trying to study, and you're not being very efficient at it. So what I taught them to do was how to use the 6 R's, let go of the worry, relax into it, and have fun studying. And of course, they all got great grades when they started practicing that way.
That's good to hear, certainly. Professor, you spoke of research. What is the goal of this research, and what is the approach behind this project at the university with your other foreign and local basically institutions you work with?
Yeah, basically what we are trying to see is we are not trying to duplicate what the US has been done, but we have the resources. And what we are really trying to do is we have it's a team outside our university also. If you look at the EEG waves, I mean here you could see in this slide the EEG waves. I mean EEG waves are electrical activity that you can record from outside. I mean during meditation, during smiling, during work, you could see various types of EEG waves are coming in. And actually from Moratuwa University, Dr. Ranatunga, he is the head of IT in Moratuwa University. He is really closely collaborating with us to find out how exactly in a Buddhist meditation, especially when Venerable Bhante Thera said it's a 2-week meditation, and basically and I from stage to stage with this meditation, mind relaxes. Obviously, I mean we feel that the brain also, from point of view of electrical activity, from gene expression, there should be certain changes, and that is exactly what we from the medical faculty and the engineering from the Moratuwa University is really venturing on to see what exactly goes on and how best this is meditation is going to be helpful for well-being or have a better brain on one side, and how is it going to help the society at large. Now, for example, if you see in my slide, I am trying to say the world is aging. When I say world is aging, from about 1970s, people have been living about 10 years more than what they are.
10 years more, okay.
10 years more, right. So, as a result, the world what we have is aging population, and also now they say by year 2020, the people who are living in the world over 100 years is going to double. So, that means if these people are going to be double, right, that means do we need better brains or healthy brains, and if so, how are we going to have these healthy brains?
We need healthy brains and healthy bodies.
Healthy bodies, yes, exactly.
And healthy minds.
Yeah.
Yes, brain.
And in my slide you can see, I mean if you look at with the aging population, Alzheimer's disease is costing billions of dollars these slides show, and the number of patients is increasing rapidly in the world. So, it is aging and Alzheimer's disease is going up. And in my next slide I am trying to show stroke. This is also disease of the aging, right, and here you could see 1 in 6 chances somebody getting a stroke in lifetime. This is what the Strokes Association, World Stroke Association says. So, can we have healthy brains, brains free of Alzheimer's disease, brains free of stroke?
Yes, can we? Can we?
Obviously, this is what US is trying to put in billions of dollars, and are Sri Lanka, are we going in the right direction and putting in so much of funding, and to find out when we have the resources is a question that I would like to raise at this.
So, meditation would be an answer?
Exactly.
Or is the answer?
I cannot say is the answer. Most of the studies are showing that for to have better brains, healthy brains, mind, psychology, meditation has played a very, very big role. And therefore, because we are aging on one side, it will be helpful in prevention of various brain diseases. On the other hand, the psychological aspect, and for the society to reduce the criminals and have very calm society, I think is one of the most important factors of a brain, and that is what we are trying to venture in to get the, I mean, as much as possible people involved into into this research.
There was a project, I think, some years ago where they actually encouraged prisoners at Balikada to engage in meditation on a daily basis, I believe, to calm them down or to change their mindset. Mr. De Silva, what are the areas of focus in research in using mindfulness in psychotherapies?
From what I have read, I think there are 4 main areas that are very, very critical if we are to reach, higher and higher results, benefits for the people. One is the definition of mindfulness, which we have talked about, and there is no consensual agreement on this yet, the conceptual and the operational definition of mindfulness. And thereafter, there is the area of developing mindfulness based interventions. Now, this is happening across the globe. As I said before, more than 250 interventions have been made, but one of the most critical areas is how exactly does mindfulness, or what is the mechanism, the causal mechanism through which mindfulness leads to positive psychological outcomes. In other words, you develop mindfulness, your state of depression improves, or your anxieties improve, or if you are a psychopath, some of those characteristics decrease. So, this mechanism is not yet understood. It is a major area of focus. Now, however, this is where I feel very strongly. The scientists today have this is the tip of the iceberg. They have just come to a very basic understanding of the application of Buddhism. They have extracted this concept of mindfulness, and then we are trying to develop our minds by developing mindfulness. However, there is no such thing in Buddhism to my understanding of Buddhism. Buddha never extracted one of the 8 path factors. They are all interlinked, and it is a gradual process. If you read the Sutta Pitaka, you can't read more than 5 suttas at a time without reading this. That is, this whole thing is a gradual process, and the basis is ethical behavior. So, now what has not yet come into the applications, the therapies, is the fact that a person has to develop fully if the mind is to be developed and to be freed of the defilements. Basically, all the problems, the mental disorders are defilements. You can do a very nice piece of research on that. So, I think the psychological interventions, the therapies, or in any other field, in education, how does one study well, right? The person has to be established in moral behavior, ethical behavior, because if your behavior is not ethical, there is no possibility of developing your mind. This is a truth which is reinforced throughout the Sutta Pitaka. So, that is one part of it which is missing. Plus, it is not simply developing mindfulness. You cannot do that, because it is all related. Insight, the wisdom also has to be developed, right view, right concepts. If you don't have a right view, if you don't have right concepts, you won't have ethical behavior. And if you don't have ethical behavior, forget it, you can't develop the mindfulness.
It's all interconnected.
It's all interconnected, it's gradual progress, it's developing the person as a whole, and when that happens, when the mind is purer and purer, meaning less and less full of defilements, it reflects in behaviors that are ethical, positive, good for you and good for the others. So that's where this field has to expand, and I think that's where a country like Sri Lanka can make a huge contribution.
We have the potential
We
to
have
go
the
forward in this.
potential. Yes,
Right.
yes, yes.
This would be my last question for this panel. Bhante, I talk to you as a layman. All those people watching you and listening to you. It's very scary. The world we are aging and we are going to live longer. There's Alzheimer's and there's stroke awaiting us somewhere down the line. Talking of tranquil wisdom in such meditation, what does a layman like myself and all of you out there need to do to further ourselves and to achieve something?
Well, the definition of meditation by the Buddha is threefold. First, you have to learn to practice your dana, your generosity. But the word, and especially in Sri Lanka, brings up the idea that you have to be giving food or alms to monks. And that's only a small part of what dana is. Dana is learning to smile and give your smile away. It is learning to develop your mind that's happy and give your happiness to other people.
That giving is also dana.
That is dana. That is definitely dana. So this is a real interesting part of what meditation is supposed to be, but most people don't only think meditation is sitting, but it's mental development. And one of the things that I truly love about Sri Lanka is that people are so friendly and they're so helpful to each other. They're practicing generosity in the correct way.
Not realizing it at times.
We're not realizing it, but the more there is true communication, the more healthy the society becomes. I wish there was more in America, actually. But the second part of practicing meditation is what you were talking about, keeping your precepts. Why do you need to keep your precepts? We all know what the precepts are. We say it every time we go to the temple, yada, yada, yada. But the precepts are real. If you break a precept, your mind feels guilty. When you have a guilty feeling in your mind, it clouds the way you see things in the world. And it causes suffering. So keeping the precepts is a very important aspect, but it has to be for real. And I know Asians, they kind of like to say these little white lies, and white lies are still lies. You're trying to deceive the world. That causes your mind to be much more active, you more stressed, more unhappy. So it's better to say nothing than it is to say a little white lie to make somebody else feel good. It's better to radiate loving kindness in your mind to that person than it is to act out breaking a precept.
So that's how one should embark on this journey.
Oh yes, absolutely. And your mind becomes much more peaceful and calm the longer you don't break the precepts.
Of course.
And I had somebody that was, he was talking about, I want to become wealthy. What do I have to do to become wealthy? Well, you practice your generosity and you keep your precepts. And finally he said, okay, you convinced me I need to keep my precepts. How long do I have to do that? And I told him we can start at 100 years and go up from there. But when you practice keeping your precepts very well, your mind becomes more generally mindful. You know more of what you're going to do and what you're going to say before you say it.
And you're conscious and aware that you are observing the precepts and
Oh, yes.
keeping to them.
Yes. There's a lot of temptations to break them.
Of course.
So when you make the decision, especially drugs and alcohol, because if you take drugs and alcohol, you have a tendency to break the other precepts. And
it's a chain reaction again.
Yeah. And I can tell a person that's been drinking alcohol when they come for a retreat because their mind is dull. And that's what it does to your mind. It makes you dull. And the mental development of reminding yourself to wish other people well. In the simile of the saw, it says, it doesn't matter if somebody comes to you and they talk to you in a timely way or untimely way. It doesn't matter if they're telling you the truth or telling you the lie. It doesn't matter if they come at you nicely or very harshly. What matters is what you're doing in your mind. And the recommendation that the Buddha has is when somebody comes up to you and they're kind of bothering you a little bit, instead of disliking them and not liking what they're saying, you start radiating loving kindness to that person. And when they go away, that's the reminder to radiate loving kindness to all beings. And that's how you start affecting the world in a positive way, and how you develop your mind so it's more uplifted.
I'm afraid we got to bring our forum to a close. Thank you very much, Bhante. It was certainly an honor having you here, and thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you very much. And Professor, thank you very much once again for being my guest and talking to us, Mr. Silva. Thank you very much once again. I've learned a lot in this past 1 hour, and I believe you've also learned as well. So thank you very much for being with us on the program. May you all be well and happy, friends.